Okay, action. Alright, first things first, take note of the class that we're going to have next week. I just sort of confirmed the information. For you guys, it's Tuesday and Thursday. So note that all the classes are the same except for you guys on Thursday will be 5:23. Alright? So these are the computer labs. You've all been to the computer labs, right? Alright, reason why is because this week you guys have probably set up your blogs already. Okay, if you haven't, then what's keeping you? And so in the process of doing it, some of you might have been more experienced than the rest. Some of you might be doing it for the first time. So for those of you who are not so familiar, while you're in the process of setting up your blog and maybe looking at your classmates' blogs, you might have questions. You know, how does this work? Or I want to do this too. How did she do it? Well, while you're in the process of doing it, while you're blogging, note down these questions for next week. So you can ask me, or I might even call up some of you who have done interesting things on your blog already to demonstrate how you do it. Okay? So just take note of that. Alright, so once you take note of the classes, if there's any changes, you know, things like that, sometimes they change around, I'll let you know. Today's lecture is something that I presented, I guest lectured this material here. I guest lectured this material in the organizational communication class. And it was to demonstrate how the social web, that is, you know, Web 2.0, things like blogging, YouTubes and all that, how all these technologies allow organizations to participate, allow customers to participate, allow many different factions of society to come together and participate in a certain conversation. Okay? More about it as we go along. So, the rise of us, as some of you noted already, I've shown you the Times magazine where the person of the year is you. Okay, and there's a reason for that. Because the web now is really made up of all of you. Google and YouTube and all that wouldn't exist if it weren't for you being that interesting. Okay? Or boring, depending. Alright? Okay, so first off, I just wanted to jump back to what I talked about before, the Black Friday thing. Are any of you here new? As in you haven't seen me here before? Okay, I see a few new faces, right? You guys just came in, correct? I didn't see you in the earlier class. Okay, just to give you a brief idea, I mentioned how some of the things that I wrote about was published in the media. Basically, people were interested in some of the things that I did research on. And so I'm going to share that with you so that you'll be interested. Black Friday is a sale that happens after Thanksgiving in the States. And one of the big reasons why it's called Black Friday, it's not because it's very dark or gruesome, but because it's the day when retailers finally get back into the black. The account books are no longer in the red and they go back into black. And the way they do it is by having a lot of sales. The sales can start as early as 5 a.m. We're talking about stores like Sears, departmental stores, to online retailers. You know, like sometimes Amazon has sales going on. Apple also has sales, apple.com. You can buy iPods cheaper than usual. Things like that. So that's Black Friday. The big deal about Black Friday is that it's such an anticipated day after Thanksgiving. People are usually interested to buy specific things, you know, a gadget or something. So say for example, I'm interested in an Xbox 360, okay, and you know that consoles rarely go on sale, but some of the stores do put it on sale on that day. Now the thing is, retailers won't usually release this information ahead of time. You know, it's partly to do with competition. If I release mine early, my competitor might cut me even more, as in they reduce their price even more. So there's a lot of competition going on. But what's happening is that there are people working in these companies, whether sales associates or just customers who happen to have a keen eye to see a piece of paper with some information on the counter. You know, they gather information on what's happening out there, and then they post it online, whether it's in forums. You know, in Singapore you might have Hardware Zone and all that. You familiar with Hardware Zone? You know, there are forums in there where they talk about price lists and all that. But in the States, you have all kinds of websites like Tech Bargains, Fat Wallet, Slick Deals, and so on and so forth. You can find all the latest deals. Now, forums are one way in which people share the information, but people have come up with specific websites, such as what they call Black Friday websites, where they compile the information. All right, and it's become a phenomenon because it's amazing how the information gets leaked, and it's amazing how the information gets compiled neatly together on a website. So you can even search by retailer, like Best Buy. You want to see what Best Buy has on sale, you can see everything. Some people even get their hands on the actual ad before it gets published in newspapers, so they scan the ads. So there's a lot of leaked information. Okay, it's more consumer-oriented information, but still, it's somewhat confidential information. That's all leaked. And so this is what last year's one looked like. The previous year consisted mostly of how people scanned the ads and just put it up. But now people have gotten more advanced. You know, they've set up message boards, things like how you can submit your own ad, FAQs, ad scans, shopping lists, store hours. So there's a lot of, if you think about it, shopping becomes a very tactical thing. Suddenly you can start planning your routes. You know, at maybe 5 a.m., I'm going for the high priority items, Xbox 360. Okay, 6 a.m., I go for lower priority item, I go to Office Depot across the street, and then that one probably has less people there, so I go later. Or you can coordinate with your friends. Some people have 5, 10 friends buying the same item, then they eBay it after that. Okay, that's kind of how it works. There are also situations where some of the tactics that they share include things like going to the store ahead of time, taking the item, and hiding it somewhere else so that you can get to it on the sales day itself. And then there are more advanced tricks like buying it first and then getting a price match later. Things that I don't think Singapore would ever have. You know, consumer rights over there is way more extreme, as in they have more, consumers have really more rights over there. Over here you buy something, you can't really return it, right? Over there it's a norm. So it's really nice shopping over there. Alright, so everywhere there'll be all these sales, and some of the sites are even more advanced. They actually do data entry, and they actually enter the information in the database, so you can actually search by price, by what's early bird only. It means some of the sale items go really early in the morning only. After that, they'll cut it off. Like let's say by 11 a.m. we'll stop the sale of this item. So there are lots of things. This is all just interesting information. It's not going to be tested or something. Okay, it's just something to give you an idea of real-world situations out there, of what I'm going to talk about afterwards. Alright, so you can select by stores and so on. So there's a lot of back-end involved, you know, to help shoppers. Now, I want to ask you, let's say you're a retailer, okay, let's say you're Best Buy. Would you be happy with someone putting this information up? No. Can you tell me just roughly why? What's the main premise? Why would the retailers be unhappy? Any ideas? Just shoot something out.
Because I've just lost my strategic advantage. The whole idea of Black Friday was to make people come and try their luck.
Okay.
So if I'm a bigger retailer with a better reputation, odds are more people are going to come. But if everybody starts finding out where to go, I've lost that edge, and it's defeated the purpose of these surprise prices.
Okay, yeah, that's not far from the truth. I would expect that to be the case too. Typically, just to give you a better idea of how it works, on the day itself, Friday itself, in the morning, the minute the newspaper comes, that's where the ad gets published. So for people who don't go online, that's where they get the first take of what's on sale. Okay, so for the rest of us who could be more technically savvy, we could go online and look it up and plan ourselves around the sales. Now, what happened was that obviously some retailers were unhappy. In this case, Best Buy was unhappy, and they employed a very interesting tactic to stop them. They said that these price listings were copyrighted. I've never heard of such a thing, copywriting price listings. Okay, but they also use something called the DMCA. It's kind of like a blanket cyber law, okay? Digital Millennium Copyright Act. It's a blanket thing that covers things like MP3 file tradings and all that. So they use a blanket law to prevent that. So, any of you heard of DMCA before? No? Nobody illegally downloaded stuff from BitTorrent? Never received a DMCA letter? Okay. Maybe some of you have. I see some smiles. That's good. At least you know what it is. But anyway, so if you think about it, these online retailers who might, you know, what Best Buy did, for example, they scared these Black Friday websites off, and they took away the ads, you know, because this Best Buy was unhappy with it. And if you think about it, isn't it counterintuitive? You have the rest of the retailers in the database, searchable and everything, and Best Buy's ads are all gone. You've potentially lost a huge customer base. So this illustration here really is to show how the individual has more power over the giant in this case. It's like a David versus Goliath situation. You know, it's counterintuitive to go against the individuals. That is, there's more than one of us doing it, so it's hard to stop us. So it wouldn't make sense to just stomp on one. It just doesn't help the situation. And in this case, Best Buy seriously got owned. Okay, people. Some of you have heard of the term owned, ownage. Anybody? Some of you. Okay, especially gamers. Okay, when you're owned, that means you're like, how should I explain it? You're totally owned. I don't know. Can someone explain what owned is? Okay, that's a good explanation. Okay, so what's the better way to do this? Interestingly, Amazon also had a Black Friday event, and theirs occurred over a series of weeks rather than one single day. They had customers vote each week on one of the 4 items that's displayed, and the winning price would be shown here. And it's quite dramatic. Sometimes it's like 20% of the cost of the price, or much less. In the case, week 1, which I don't have a picture here, this is week 2. Week 1, they had an Xbox 360 for $100. And of course, that's the high ticket item. Everybody went for that. So everybody voted that. And after you vote, they will then, the next week, they will then put the item on sale for that price. The other items won't go on sale for those winning prices, but they'll also be, you know, put on sale for a little bit, but not as dramatically as the winning one. Okay? So what happened was that people could vote, choose what they want, and when it's time, in this case, they indicate the time here, Thursday, November 30th, 11 a.m. Okay? At that point in time, can you imagine what happened? If you want an Xbox 360 for $100 and they tell you to go to the site at 11 a.m. on Thursday, what would you do? Just go there and get ready, right? Get ready, refresh and all that, right? Okay, good. That's what we did. Me and my friend Peter here, this is his computer setup. He has a 24-inch iMac and a 24-inch Dell monitor, so he's totally wired. And I mean, I had to take this picture because you talk about nerds and geeks. These are them in action, okay? He had 5 or 6 browsers ready and loaded, different brands, you know, Camino, Firefox, Netscape, whatever. Everything already, all geared for the website. I mean, if you seriously want something, this is the kind of things that you resort to doing, and you know, you just sit there and just click, click, click. So the idea was that he got ready at 11 a.m. So we call it mission control. I also had my computer ready, and then we'll really launch our assault. Okay. But unfortunately, even though we launch each one once, you know, if you do it too many times, you might get blocked off. So you just do it once for each. We still couldn't get it. We still couldn't get it. We had 2 people, nice computers, fast internet connection, but still couldn't do it. Notice that one of the things was that it says PST. What's that? Pacific Standard Time. That's in like San Francisco, West Coast, right? Buffalo is in New York, East Coast. There's a bit of distance. Okay? It's not that we got the time wrong, but even though they say that, you know, the internet's pretty instantaneous, there's still lag. People on the West Coast could get to it much easier than people on the East. Alright? That's just to illustrate a point. We couldn't get it, and within 29 seconds, 1,000 of them were sold online. So it's crazy. And if you think about it, I mean, if you had a real store, right? and you had 1,000 Xboxes, you can't even scan the Xboxes that fast, correct? But with an online retailer, you can do things like that. Not only that, they approach the whole Black Friday thing in a much more social manner. They encourage participation. They got the word out. You know, people were excited and all that. And I think they will probably make a loss selling these things. Okay, but it's not really a loss because apparently, after these things were sold, the 3 other items that were displayed alongside, which didn't really go on sale dramatically, they were all sold out also. So what's happening here is that they give you the foot in the door kind of effect. Once you already put your vote in, you'll be interested to follow through. You say, oh, you might even say things like, oh, I didn't get it, maybe I'll get this just, you know, to make myself feel better or something. You know, you don't want to walk away empty-handed. It's psychological, okay? But for them, they are also using this opportunity to gather information about you. They want to find out what kind of demand each item has. They probably strategically place different kinds of objects, if you can see here. I mean, it's so diverse, from diamond-studded earrings to DVD player to drill to services. I mean, it's so diverse, right? They're probably trying to find out which category people are interested in, what kind of response they get, for what price, and so on and so forth. So it's partly to do probably with marketing research as well. Okay? So nothing is really for free. I mean, for the guys who got it, excellent. They might have lost. I mean, they probably, you know, they made like $100,000, but that's not a big deal. What they gained was so much more. All right. So if you think about it, Amazon approached the whole Black Friday thing in a much social manner, which is what I'm trying to tell the class all this time. That when you use blogs and all that, you're approaching the public. You're connecting with the rest of people in a much more being more transparent about it. Okay? In this case, Amazon's quite transparent in how they conduct their business as well. Not like Best Buy where you just hide the prices and sell it later, you know, put it out later. Okay? So, moving along, one of the basic premise of things like leaked Black Friday ads and all that is the idea of collective intelligence. People, or the masses of people out there, as George Poor explains, it's the capacity of the human community to evolve towards high-order complexity thought, okay, problem solving, and integration through collaboration and innovation. And if that sounds geek to you, I'll explain in English. Okay? Basically, there are 3 main premises about collective intelligence. These are the functions that you can have. It's about having everybody vote or having everybody's opinion about a certain topic, and then being coordinated about it, for example. Okay? For example, in the case of 9/11, it was well known that people went online and started using blogs to collect information. Whatever they could see or find, if they're at a location, they would report about it. And when someone wanted to learn more of what's happening out there, you could watch news, you could go to CNN.com, or you could search on Technorati or Google and hit upon the blogs where people actually have personal accounts of what happened. Okay, so that was when 9/11 was one of the instances when blogging took off. In fact, some people attribute the birth of the blogs as being due to 9/11. People saw the importance of blogs, okay, as a way for people like ourselves to reach out to other people without going through intermediaries such as journalists, news media sources, and so on, mainstream media. Okay? So coordination. No one would tell you what to do exactly. If something were to happen in Singapore and affects you, it probably might affect a bunch of people as well. All of you might be blogging, and there's an emergent kind of quality to it. People just do these things, and they coordinate subconsciously or unconsciously. Okay, when they write their titles, they might write the date. Okay, if everybody searches for the specific date, if the event occurred at a specific place, if they search for that place, they would hit upon all your blogs that mentions that place. All right, and so on and so forth. So we have what we call ad hoc communities, things that emerge on its own, organizations that self-organizing networks that evolve, that sort of emerge. In the case of things like floods in certain countries, we're getting that a lot. You know, relief efforts, they're also sort of coordinated. okay? Sometimes through non-governmental organizations like Red Cross, but sometimes through just people getting together, agreeing to do something, okay? Then there comes the other ones, such as things like cooperation. Open source software is a great example. We can thank the birth of Firefox to those developers who wanted to create a better browser. And these people might not know each other, but they just had the same idea, and they worked on the same project. Okay, so open source software is a good example of how, collective intelligence fosters cooperation and then leads to better things. P2P business, things like Napster and all that. I mean, there's an interreliance with one another to get the files we want. BitTorrent works the same way. The files actually gets distributed across all of us so that it doesn't choke the network. It gets spread over the entire network. Okay, not one server gets hit, but everybody shares the load. Okay, BitTorrent works that way too. Skype works that way too. If you notice when you launch Skype, at the corner to the bottom right, it shows you the number of users. And it's ever increasing, yes, but those users are important because your traffic, the voice gets digitally recorded, sort of digitally encoded, and sent as data streams that get spread across different users, and it goes back to whoever's listening to you or talking to you. Okay, so it gets distributed out, goes back in. So that way, there's no reliance on one line. It gets sort of like multicasted across several people. All right. Some people also say that this form of communication is also more secure because it's all fragmented. Okay, but that's a different issue altogether. So that's cooperation. The third one is the most interesting, I feel, because it's very predictive. The stock market is a good example. But the stock market is one where it's very reiterative. People buy and sell. You can see trends. And so you might be tempted to follow as well. When you see a mass of people dumping stocks, usually it's an indication that something is going on. That's also a form of collective intelligence. It's reactive. And you can also participate in it. If you start to sell, your friend who trusts you might also want to sell, and so on and so forth. But that's just a very basic example. The more advanced ones might include things like any of you listen to things like Pandora.com or Last.fm? Music recommendation websites? Okay, if you haven't, go try it. It's awesome because from any computer to your web browser, you can listen to music. And although you can't listen to the specific track that you want, if you plug it in there, it will show you other music that are similar to what you like. Okay? And they do it in several ways. In the case of Last.fm, they do it in a social way. Okay? If, let's say, most of us here who happen to like what's popular now. What are you listening to right now? Just shoot out a name. Justin Timberlake? Old school? Anything? What, Fergie? What? Britney Spears? Anything. Muse. Okay, let's say Muse. Okay, they just perform at Fort Canning. Let's say for those, many of us who listen to Muse also happen to listen to, just shooting off the top of my head, Oasis. Alright? So, based on this collective information that it gathers, that, oh, okay, most people who like Muse also happen to like Oasis. Well, I can't let you listen to Muse, but I can let you listen to Oasis. It recommends based on user, what people like. Okay, and the more people who like this, who also happen to like that, chances are you will also happen to like that. Okay, it works in a social manner. So that recommendation services are also kind of predictive. It uses the idea of cognition, thinking. Okay. Just for your info, the two competing services, Last.fm and Pandora, both are recommendation services, but both work very differently. One uses people like ourselves to recommend music to other people. The other one uses the signature of music, or what they call the DNA of music. For example, if you like Chemical Brothers, they have a lot of electro beats in it. Then you probably like maybe Prodigy, which also has electro beats. They break the music down into components and parts. If you like a lot of saxophone jazz, particular music with a lot of saxophone, they'll find another music that has a lot of saxophone. So that's using algorithm, while one's using the social fabric to determine what's good out there. So both systems work very similar but different approach. Very interesting. Okay, but that's the idea here, is to talk about how people, the masses of people, can help one another. Some of us refer to this as the brain trust. Okay? So CI is a big deal. The social web works like most social networks and all that, take advantage of collective intelligence. All right, moving along. So this book, Smart Mobs, was written by Howard Ringel. Any of you seen this book before or heard? Oh, got a geek at the back. I'm also a geek, don't worry. What's your name, by the way? Yingzi. Did I get it right? Okay, good. Okay, great. Do you read it yet?
No, it's my brother.
Okay. Then your brother's the geek. Okay. Smart Mobs talks about CI, which is not a very new term, and gives real-life examples of how it's happened today. Okay, we've heard of things like flash mobs. Any of you heard of flash mobs? Right? People who get together and spontaneously do something. There are iPod flash mobs, or what they call the silent disco flash mob, where people would just put on the headphones, go to a specific place, play their music, and dance. And no one would know what the hell they're doing because they can't hear music, but they're all doing their own dancing. Yes? Yes. Tell us more about it.
Well, the organizers taped an MP3 track and sent it to the participants. So they all got together and they played the MP3 at the same time, and they followed the instructions in the track on their music playlist.
Okay.
It's like expedition music.
So it's more coordinated than the earlier generation of flash mobbing.
No, because
No?
you know some players they started sometimes and they started.
Oh, so you see some people lagging behind. That's pretty cool too.
The videos and pictures on there.
Okay. Blog about it on your blog, if you can, and I'll try and show it in class. Because this kind of thing, right, if I talk about it, it's like, so what? But when you watch it, it's mind-boggling. It's really mind-boggling. These kind of things are really experiential. You know, there are some things like traveling, right? You can read the books. It doesn't really help you much. Oh, so nice, the food. I wish I was there. But it's not the same as being there. All right? So we really have to experience it, and video gets us closer to that experience. And in any case, Smart Mobs is a seminal book. It's an important book. And Howard Ringel was the guy who came up with the term virtual communities. So you know he's like, okay, he's a good guy to read. And he talks about it, you know, about these phenomenons and so on, about how the masses of people out there, when they get together, they can do really, really amazing things. You might want to look it up on Amazon. I've shown you this that day, got some laughs. The idea of citizen journalism is also very tied into CI, collective intelligence. I've told you before about how when the snowstorm hit in Buffalo in October, and guess what? It's actually happening right now also in a lot of parts of the States. If you guys have been catching on to the news, there's this really severe cold that's sweeping eastern part of the States. A lot of things are being frozen over. Literally your car's encased in ice kind of situation. Roads become ice. Cars slipping around. It's very dangerous. I think 50 over people died so far, highway accidents. And related to what I'm talking about here, the snowstorm that happened in Buffalo was so sudden and so severe, everybody took out the cameras, started taking pictures. The reporter for this article found 100 YouTube videos tied to October 13th. I believe it was 13th, so you can see, whoa, that's a very ominous date. October 13th, Buffalo snowstorm. Search for that and you find instances where you see hundreds of YouTube videos uploaded. No one told these people what to do. They just did it. And that's also partly, you know, smart mobbing in action. So when the reporter said that, I was talking to a journalist. I was saying, what do you think? How many photos do you think there'd be if there's 100 videos? And we found that there were 800. So that's pretty impressive too. All right? And so, organizations aren't blind to these things. The more progressive organizations, CNN, usually it's I find that it's the American organizations, American and UK organizations that always try out new things. They started to capitalize on these things. CNN has this thing called iReports, where they invite people to send in videos and snapshots of things that happen. And not too long ago, there was a baseball player who flew a plane into New York, and it crashed into a building. People thought it was another 9/11 happening all over again, but it was just an accident. And the first few pictures to come out of there were taken by passerbys, people in the street taking pictures. Okay, so they use these images because the reporters obviously wouldn't be there. Okay, until later when it's all over. This, what you're seeing here, You Witness News, obviously it's a play on YouTube and all that, but You Witness News is Yahoo's way of also tapping on the collective intelligence, to tap on citizen journalism and so on and so forth. Okay? So all these links that I have here, you can read about the whole story because I like to write about these things. Okay? And just to give you an idea, in case you're taking notes, just to tell you, I'm having these slides printed out and I'll give it to you on Tuesday next week. Alright? But you might want to just take notes just in case there are things that are not in here. Alright, so just to have a good idea of how all this works, it seems so messy. How do people actually make sense of all this? Here's a little chart in a book that was recently published. Can't really read the words. But I have the link at the bottom so you can actually see this article. It's from a book that just came out. And what the authors are doing, they are trying to attempt to paint a flowchart of what's actually going on. We start at the bottom, okay? There are content sharing sites and P2P networks, things like BitTorrent, Nutella, Flickr and all that. People who share pictures, people who share files. It starts from there. It also starts from mostly the bloggers over here, like personal media, blogs, video blogs, photo blogs. People see stuff, they write about it, which I hope you guys will do also. You see something, you write about it. And then they get searched and they get found. There are also things like forums, instant messaging, chat rooms. There could be a journalist, embedded online, listening in and recording and trying to make sense of what's going on. Okay. And search engines and aggregators, social bookmark sites like Delicious. Some of the things that I mentioned might not be familiar with you. Over time, you'll be familiar with them. Okay. These are other automated ways. Okay, the internet has search engines, aggregators, and all that sort of dig out what's hot out there. Okay, if you go to Google News, how does it work? Google News doesn't have reporters out there, right? What Google News does is it tracks what all the main news publications publish, and then it picks out the hot news and puts it all together on one page. So this is what an aggregator kind of looks like. Okay? With all of you blogging, 77 of you across 2 classes, I obviously can't go to each blog to read what's going on. I might try to do that over this weekend, which means I burn my entire weekend. But what I'm going to do is also try to set up an aggregator so that I can pull everybody's posts onto one page so I can read it. And hopefully if I can get it set up properly, then all of you can also see that page. Because blogging isn't a solo effort. It's you being part of a bigger picture. And I hope to show that idea to you when I get it all done. Alright? So, it starts with us using all these different things, sharing our information. And then we have the journalists who then get story ideas from us. Okay? And finally, these journalists will publish the information, whether it's on TV, radio, or newspaper. And guess what? It goes back to people like us, who then talk about it again. Okay, so it's cyclic. Okay, there's a cycle to it. All right. To give you a good idea, maybe for example, when Tammy's video was released, all right, #1 hit on international search engines. For some reason, Singaporeans have a very major impact on search engines. I'm not sure why. Our searches can end up as one of the #1 hits internationally. Either that or someone out there is just clicking non-stop. So, but in any case, the Tammy incident was first circulated in a forum, right? Oh wait, it was through a cell phone, passed on to a cell phone, passed on to a cell phone, and then passed on to the web. And someone probably posted it onto a forum. That was what I heard. And then from a forum, it leaked out to the blogosphere. And then it got, from the blogosphere, then it appeared on tomorrow.sg, which a lot of people look at. And then after that, it went to news media. And then after that, it went to the government. And after that, it went to the police. And then I've seen a poster where it says something like, it shows a picture of this guy with a camera, and it says something like, be careful what you record. Any of you remember that? Any of you seen that? Be careful what you share, you know? So I know all of you are very young and excited and all that, and you've got toys that you want to play with. You know, you want to record all kinds of stuff, but record and share widely, but record smartly as well, okay? Don't get yourself in trouble. So, that's an instance where it initiated from someone, and the word spread. And the word spreads through all these kinds of services out there on the internet, these social services, then the news journalists get wind of it, it gets published, and it keeps going on and on. So if it's an interesting piece of news, it keeps going on for a long time. What's interesting though is that I found, besides the Tammy video, other videos that were pretty similar, but they don't seem to get as much coverage. You guys know that there are other videos out there showing couples doing things, Singaporean couples doing things, right? You familiar? Or you think that that's the only one? There are more silly people out there, you know? The point being is that they were the first to market, okay, in the .com speak, they were first to market, alright? And other competitors just can't have the same level of fame after that, alright? But yes, there are forums that you can search for. Part of my research involves knowing what's out there. I've got a friend who, what I call, you know, like reporters have their beats, right? They have their beats, they have several sources and all that. One of my contacts is someone who's very involved in sleaze, and he keeps track of sleaze for me. Okay? You need to know what's going on. Sleaze is one of the things that gets trafficked a lot. Okay, of all kinds of stuff, you know. Why does People magazine sell so well? You know, it's all sleaze. You know, why does the tabloid do so well? People want to stop all these tabloids and all that in UK. It's so dangerous. You know, Princess Diana got killed because of the paparazzi and all that. But you know, it's business after all. It's not about reporting the truth. You know, it's about getting ratings and making money. So even what's his name? Chris Anderson, Anderson 360 of CNN. Any of you heard of his name before? He came to UB recently to give a talk. And one of the first things that he said, which was one of the most important things, is that he said that news media is about ratings. Okay? So even though he might know that there are important issues out there to talk about in his show, sometimes he can't because it's not popular. Alright? You wouldn't want to risk spending all the airtime with all millions of viewers talking about something that you are not sure if people would want. So you end up talking about the war. And even though people get tired of it, it's try and test it. So it keeps going on and on and on. So there's a problem with the news media that is, by its sheer size and investment, it's very incumbent. It can't move as fast. And it's people like us who can move faster. We can talk about things that are cutting edge. We can talk about things that haven't broken yet, haven't broken news yet. Okay? So that's why we have a role here. Doesn't mean that the journalists out there do their thing and we can just rely on them. Now there's a dependence on us as well. Okay? I've talked so much about Web 2.0. This class started at 12:30, right? And it's 1:15, right? So it's 45 minutes in, right? Do you guys want a break?
Yes.
Okay. Get a break, but please, when you come back, look more excited. You look so tired. All right, 10 minutes. All right, what is Web 2.0? I mentioned a lot of Web 2.0, I mentioned a lot of the social web and all that. What's that all about? Okay, 2006 was very big on Web 2.0. And to talk about it, we have to figure out what Web 1.0 is all about, the early web. And it's all about browsing. Okay, the earlier web was really very passive. All you could do is search and read, and you couldn't really affect the information that was out there. You couldn't augment it, you couldn't change it. There are forums and all that, okay, Okay, those were interesting developments, but on the whole, a lot of the websites out there couldn't change. Okay, only the webmaster could change it. Web 2.0 is really about participation. Okay, where you have an active voice, an active say as to how something is presented. When a journalist puts up a news article in a newspaper, you can't really comment on it. But when the same journalist puts up a blog and blogs that particular news article, you can also leave comments and add information to it. Okay, so the news changes, it gets updated, or it could be corrected. Sometimes it's a factual error as well. So it's all about that. And it doesn't necessarily have to occur just on blogs. It can occur through YouTube as well. When I put out a video on YouTube, I could have responses in the form of videos as well. I could respond to a YouTube video that one of you put with a video of my own. Okay, so that's just on the video side, and so on and so forth. So there's many instances where you can change the information out there. Wikipedia is a great example, okay, where you can change the information out there. So just to give you a rough idea, Web 2.0 is what I also refer to as the social web, or the read-write web. Okay, you not only can read it, but you can write on it too. The general idea is that there wasn't proper technologies in the early days for people like ourselves, without the technical know-how, to build websites, to put up conversations, and so on and so forth. But now, with blogs and all that, you don't really have to learn what HTML and all that's all about. You can just go out there and concentrate on your content and just share it. Okay? And this little chart here kind of demonstrates the different philosophies, different attributes of what Web 2.0 is about. Things like participation, usability, ability to use the information in various places, like your mobile phones, computers, even iPods, and so on and so forth. How information can be shared across devices. Okay? There's a whole different economy involved. There's this thing called virtual economy, the gift economy. Open source software is really mostly gig economy. You might not have heard of that term because it's a very un-Singaporean term. Everything has to have a price on it. Okay? But in this case, it's not about price or capitalism or anything like that. The gig economy works very differently, and it's been around for a very long time. And that's one of the things that we'll talk about in our syllabus as time goes on. Design. You notice that the face of the web's changed, the look and feels changed. Okay? It's kind of like fashion. The way our clothes have changed also. Okay? Remixability. Standards first. Standards. About how people are developing standards as to how information can be shared. Okay? Whether it's across devices or whether pieces of information can interact or affect each other. Okay? So when you put up something on your blog, it doesn't just end there. Someone could take it, mash it up, cite it, reuse it. Text is easy. You just quote it. But what about videos and audios? Most of the time you have to download it and re-edit it and put it back up. It's very troublesome. But there are services out there like jumpcut.com that let you take videos and immediately splice them and remix them on your browser itself. So you can come up with a mashup of your own. Okay? So remixability is a big deal. It can also occur as a Google Map thing. Some of you might have seen Google Map hacks where you can search for all the Starbuckses in the area or something like that. There are many different uses. Convergence. With all these things in place, convergence might occur in the form of, say, like the little aggregator that I showed you, about how all these pieces of information can all be put together in a specific place. So you don't have to visit different websites or go to different sources to find the information. Everything can come to you. Okay? Convergence also can occur as a device. All right? So it can be cell phones, where you have MP3 players, cameras all built in. So convergence, it's a very big deal. Participation again. So then we have all the other supporting technologies, things like wikis, blogs, and so on, that ride upon this philosophy. Okay? So there's been a Web 2.0 explosion. Some people call it the second dot-com boom, but a lot of people don't want to say that because the dot-com is very associated with the dot-bomb, with the idea of dot-bomb, so they don't want to talk about that. So they refer to it as just, a Web 2.0 explosion, where you see all these websites coming up, whether it's Friendster or Facebook, Cyworld used to be a social network for Koreans only, It's a very unique social network. It's different from anything else we've used before because it's what you have is a room. Okay, it's a room, and you have a picture of yourself, a little cartoon figure, and then every day you can dress yourself differently, and you can put decorations in a room. And so they use a visual way to communicate their relationship with others or how they're feeling. And recently they also released a US version as well as versions for other countries. But it's very country specific. I don't think Singapore has it yet. Alright? I wouldn't know how it will do well in Singapore, whether it will work. It's kind of like The Sims a little bit, but it doesn't move. Okay? Alright. So these are just some of the services out there. If you're interested in stuff like this, there's a website you can go to. It's called techcrunch.com. And if you look up that site, these guys who run techcrunch.com, they're very tied to venture capitalists and all that. So they know what's up and coming. They can tell you what Amazon's latest project is and all that spiel. Okay? So you get to know what's new out there. Alright, moving on. But with all these services out there, we'll just need to concentrate on a few. Some of it we'll use in class, some of it you might use in your personal life. For blogs, we will be using things like Blogger. Bookmarks, this is something I won't force on all of you to use, but you know that links, just as like in the real world, the currency of the real world is the dollars and cents. Okay? We've got notes and all that. Paper money, made of paper and all that. That represents the currency of our world. Alright? The simplest form. Okay, there's also things like reputation and all that, but I won't go into that. Just the notes, those denominations itself. On the web, however, someone actually said, I thought it was pretty neat. Someone actually said that the currency of the web is really links. Okay? Because it's what links drives the web. Things like tomorrow.com, tomorrow.sg is really all about trading links. You know, who's putting up the coolest link out there, who's going to get the most comments. Dig also exists because of links. You know, it's all about trading links and then putting a value on it. Slashdot is all about linking as well. So links is a big deal. For those of you who have started blogging, some of you have put links to other things as well. But I think one of the key things that makes my blog well received by some people, they told me, is that I link a lot. I link a lot to a lot of things that I talk about. So even, for example, if I were to explain a term that I know people might not be familiar with, I link it to a definition or I link it to something. Okay? So you're literally helping people out there. You know, think of yourself as Mother Teresa, making the web more beautiful. Okay? So, I mean, what I'm just trying to say here is link and link widely. Link as much as you can. Okay? But don't kill yourself doing it. Then there are things like Flickr. Any of you tried or use Flickr? Good, good. Okay, Flickr is a site where it's a great site. They innovated, they revolutionized photo sharing with a lot of new technologies. One of the biggest things that they do is the idea of tagging. They came up with the idea of tagging. Okay, and I'll talk more about it. Okay, actually in your next week's readings, which you are supposed to do this week for next week, if you look in your syllabus, you see it. You'll see that one of the things that I have you guys read is this thing called folksonomy. Okay, folksonomy is an idea that is always a counterpoint to taxonomy. And if you hear all these monies and no idea, or just to give you a heads up what it's all about, taxonomy is the idea of how people organize things. Could be anything. Okay, could be anything. How we categorize things. Take for example a library. Okay, the taxonomy will be the Dewey Decimal System. Okay, folksonomy is more interesting. Just to give you a rough idea, I'll talk more about it next time. But folksonomy is more interesting. It's a category developed by you yourself. It's a personal thing. But just like how blogs and all that work, it's magical. It's subconscious, it's emergent, because when you tag, say, you take a picture of me, right? And you put it on Flickr, what will you tag it with? You might say, put a tag as my name, Kevin Lim. You might also tag it as green. You might also tag it as teacher. You might also tag it as SIM. You might even tag it as COM125, and the list goes on. So literally, you're adding metadata, realistically speaking. Okay? You're making sense of me. You could put a description and all that, but what's more valuable are those tags or keywords they attach to me, so people can find me. Okay? And these categories are developed by you yourself. So while taxonomies rely on experts to come up with categories, taxonomy doesn't need an expert. You come up with it yourself. Okay? There are good and bad points about that. But Web 2.0 is really a lot. You see a lot of examples of taxonomy being used everywhere. Okay? You might even be using it without realizing it. Okay? And I'll go more into it next time. So these are just other services that you might use in the social web. So one of the big things about the Web 2.0 is blogging. Okay, what time does this class end? 1? Oh, okay, 2. I thought it was 1:30. Okay, so one of the biggest things about the social web, the easiest way to perceive it is through the idea of blogs. Okay, blogs are short for weblogs. Simplest. Okay, in the early days before we had blogger.com and all that, people update their websites regularly by doing HTML. Alright? And it became easier over time as people automated the process. They had forms that you just fill, write a post and then hit submit or publish and that's it. So it became easier over time. But weblogs existed a long time ago. And to show how serious weblogs are, okay, perhaps some people aren't exposed to it and think of it as just personal diaries. They are more than just that. This chart, which isn't very new anymore, it's up to January 2006, shows you the doubling effect it has every 5 months. And at some point, as you notice over there, it's going to be just a straight line, which it probably is right now. Okay? Granted, a lot of it's probably spam blogs, people who use blogs just to put spam and get Google hits and all that. But still, the overall effect is that there are more people blogging. Okay? So it's a big deal. Why are more people blogging? If people are so, could be afraid or skeptical about it, a lot of people are still trying it out. Some of them get hooked, some of them drop off. Okay? But this chart is even more important because it shows the difference between how much attention blogs get versus the mainstream media. The ones in blue are mainstream media and their online components. For example, you've got New York Times right on top. And New York Times is a website, and that's the number of hits or traffic that they get. Alright? And compare it down to all the other newspapers, BBC and so on. And then you hit Boing Boing. Any of you seen Boing Boing? Or know what Boing Boing is? It's a fantastic site. It's one of the first few blogs I recommend you checking out. They talk about all kinds of odd stuff. And if you want to know what's cool out there and all that, they're usually the first to know. So if you want to be cool, you should check it out. And they are popular for that very reason. It's all about odd, strange things that happen, and you've got academics behind it. You've got cultural writers behind it, people who watch trends and all that. They know what's going on. They write about things. You find all kinds of interesting things. All right, boingboing.net, I think. It's .net. And guess what? They get more hits or more visits than things like Times, Fox News, Business Week. All right, so that ought to mean something. Xia Xue probably might be somewhere here, somewhere. Okay, she might not be that important to most of you, but there are some people who enjoy reading her blog. The character she plays, and so on and so forth. Or maybe it's not really a character, maybe it's for real, we don't know. And then there's Engadget. Any of you seen Engadget? I'm amazed. Wow, I thought Singaporeans are very into gadgets and all that stuff, cell phones and all that. Engadget is really a gadget haven blog. It's all about gadgets and they talk about the latest and the greatest. Okay? So do check these sites out. Get a rough idea of what's out there in the blogosphere. Then we have, it overrides things like Slashdot and CBS News. Post Secret is another one, and Daily Kos. Any of you seen Post Secret before? Oh, good. Okay, at least you guys are clued in. The other class didn't know what Post Secret was, but they knew what Engadget was. So it's very strange that, got different groups of people here. Post Secret is really cool. All you do is you submit a secret to the website or the blog and they publish it. Yeah, hold on here. The trick is this. You send it in as a postcard, therefore Post Secret, and you don't put your name on it. If you think about it, you go, let's say in a church, you go to, one of those, I don't know what you call it. There's this room that you go into and you confess. Confession room. Okay, it's just confession room then. I thought they had a fancy name for it. So you confess and it makes you feel better, right? Because you let it out, you let people know, someone know at least, what's out there. In this case, you don't have to be religious to do this, but you can just post a secret. And it's beautiful because you get to see the inner sides of human beings. When you read all the secrets that people post about, you know, I cheated on my husband, or I cheated on my husband, but I love him so much, and you know, stuff like that. There are more interesting things than what I got to share. Some of the anecdotes that they share are really fascinating. Okay, you get to see the inner demons of people. You get to see the real life of people. Things that you will not experience at face value when you talk to your friends. Okay, so they even have a book, and they are into volume 2 already. Okay, that is, the book actually shows you actual postcards, and the postcards are very beautiful. Sometimes it's a picture, sometimes they draw on it, they paint on it, and they write the secret there. So check it out. It's a very, very beautiful thing. Daily Kos is a political blog, which I don't know will ever exist, will ever have an equivalent in Singapore. The closest one I've seen to that might be Mr. Wang with Commentary Singapore. Any of you seen that? No. They say that Singaporean youths are apathetic towards politics. Is that true? Do you really not care about like who's part of the government and everything? Who's running the show? Yeah, there's a name for it. It's called dynastic politics. That is, it's a family-run thing. But I won't go into that. I mean, everybody has a point of view. Okay, it's not wrong, it's not right. The positive side of it is that it's very efficient government. Okay? So anyway, in America it's more freedom of speech, you know. And Daily Kos is a huge, huge political website, left-wing, right-wing, Democrats, Republican. They all talk about different issues and all that. Okay?